Coming up on today's podcast, the best-selling author of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, John Gray, is back.
Hi, I'm Tony. I'm an author, presenter at Sky Sports, and years ago I went to the jungle and got ill. Very ill. So this is my podcast adventure to find more energy. It's packed with biohacking, science, health tech, supplements, and some of the most well-known experts on the planet.
This is something I spent 4 months of my life doing with electrodes glued to my head so that you can do a lifetime worth of meditation.
Decide what you don't give a fuck about, which is something you don't care about.
Some of it gets quite out there.
I had some stem cells sent up to my house that I had stored, and then I injected myself with mannitol.
And we even hack hangovers.
Alcohol is poisonous. So is water and oxygen in the wrong dosage.
So that's my podcast, Zestology. Live life with energy, vitality, and motivation.
I've been doing this podcast, I think about 7 years now. It's been quite a big part of my life over the last few years, and the interviewee who has had more listeners than anybody else, the number one most listened to podcast was John Gray. And John Gray is coming up today on Zestology. And on today's podcast, if you don't know about John Gray, he's the guy who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, the best-selling non-fiction hardback book of all time. So, he's got a bit of a pedigree. And what's interesting today is we talk about relationships and we talk about anxiety during lockdown, but we also talk about an interesting area that I know that he's fascinated by, which is biohacking, optimizing your health and wellness in your body, and taking supplements when necessary to do that. And he comes up with some very interesting supplements there as well. And he is such an optimizer and such a tracker. He notices what happens. And therefore, I think he's just such a perfect fit for this podcast. And related to that, before we get into today's podcast, I did want to briefly touch on what we were speaking about last week in terms of tracking. Because like John Gray, I try a lot of stuff in my life to sort of tweak and optimize. And last week with Gil Blander, we were talking about using this new system, InsideTracker, to track my own results and my own health and my own markers. And I've come up with some interesting results. So John Gray's on the way shortly. Before that, last week, spoke to Gil Blander. He is the founder of InsideTracker, which is an online system that analyzes your body's data to provide you with a very clear picture of what's going on inside of you. And you can do some home testing, which is really cool, get some detailed recommendations as well. They are the podcast partners for this show this week. And if you go to InsideTracker.com/Zestology, you can get 25% off. But I wanted to talk briefly about tracking because, we looked at it last week and I wrote about it in my book recently quite a bit actually, because over the years I've tracked so many things and it's helped so much. Honestly, I've made a bit of a list. I've tracked energy levels, happiness, focus, workout length and quality, length of sleep and quality of sleep, what time I went to bed. That actually helped quite a lot tracking that. And I found the optimized time is 10:45, which isn't the most party animal time in the world, but just suits me. Heart rate and heart rate variability, the food eaten and the calories and the carbs and the time of meals, even croissant consumption, gluten-free croissant consumption. So there you go. I do think that when you're tracking these areas, for any subjective areas like this, you can give yourself a subjective score out of 10. And then for objective areas, something where it's not in doubt, you do the blood tests like through InsideTracker and you get the results. And then you can start to say, hang on, for those 3 months I meditated and my health scores and my health results and my blood tests were better. And it is no exaggeration to say that you will find a link between the two. I am an unashamed nerd when it comes to tracking stuff. And coming up later on this podcast, you will hear what I've discovered from my experience with InsideTracker. One of my markers was outside range. So it's just something that I wouldn't have known. I did a blood test. You get the kit through the post. It takes about 3 minutes to squeeze a little finger drop of blood. Is that the right term? Onto a piece of cardboard, and then you send it back and you get the results, and then they give you some recommendations as well. And that is something that I would not have known if I hadn't have tracked my health. if I hadn't have been using this system to track my health and wellness. You know, because the great thing is, after a while, you can look at the data and you can see what's working best. On the days you exercise, you're shown to be having an increase in energy levels, for example. And then using InsideTracker as well, you can get science-backed recommendations for positive diet and lifestyle changes. So look, I'm a massive tracking fan. If you've got any more questions, obviously, as usual, get in touch. If you're interested in InsideTracker, go to InsideTracker.com/Zestology and more on my experience using that a little bit later on. And if you're interested in some nutrition for feeling good, it's time for John Gray. And the reason that I mention nutrition is that in this interview today, John Gray talks about the one thing, if he wasn't able to take anything else, he would take this. And he also said, and this got me quite interested, he says, whenever he sees another wrinkle, he takes some. So he looks in the mirror, sees a wrinkle, takes some. That's got some serious longevity implications. You'll be fascinated by that. So look, a quick Wikipedia search on John Gray has told me that his book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, which doesn't really need much introduction, has been published in 40 languages and has earned John Gray almost $18 million, which is quite tidy. He's also a lovely bloke and he's become a friend, and I'm really pleased to welcome him back to Zestology. He's probably been on 6 times now. One of my most long-standing frequent guests, and that's because people love listening to him and you love listening to him. And I have to say, one of his interviews was my all-time most listened to podcast. So let's talk relationships, supplements, and what happens when you see a new wrinkle in the mirror with John Gray.
We grew up in a world where feelings were very common. But if you go back in literature, the word I feel was never there a couple hundred years ago. Didn't exist. People, they would feel sensation. They couldn't feel their emotions. They were emotional, kind of like an animal is emotional, but they're not aware of what emotion they're feeling at the time. We have the ability to be aware of what we're feeling, which is to know a thought is a feeling, and also to know a sensation is a sensation. And to know an emotion, you feel an emotion. When you can feel an emotion, you have the ability to analyze it. And all negative emotions are based upon a lie. And that lie started in the first 6 years of life when you got the message, whether it was given to you or not, you gave yourself the message that I'm not good enough or I don't deserve. How do I have to change who I am? How do I have to adapt who I am to become lovable? Because we don't know that we're so lovable. And these are all deep psychological things that I think most people can start noticing that,
and with the fear as well, I mean, that's really interesting in terms of what we were talking about over the last year as well. People are feeling that fear. Would you say that comes down to the same thing?
Yes. And I think it's really good is that when the outer world triggers you and you feel fear, it's hard to, because there's no access to the truth outside of yourself, but you have that, because we know people are lying all the time. This is like a really big lesson. You can't trust TV. You can't trust authority. And if authority is making you feel fear, now go back to where you really have a rational reason to feel fear, a rational reason to be afraid is when you're a child and you don't have a logical brain. You can't question things. You are dependent upon authority. If you don't please authority, which is your parents, you don't get fed. You don't get held. You don't get loved. So this is, it's really what it's all about. What's that?
Well, I was just going to say, because obviously the last time I saw you, I think my son was about 6 weeks old and he's now 2. But I'm very careful to try and parent him in a way that he feels unconditionally loved. And if he I don't know, smashes a glass or does something, it's not like he is not responsible in any way for my emotions. That's what's like really important to bring him up thinking.
Yeah, it's so key what you just said. He's not responsible for my emotions. Because usually parents will be upset with their children, and some parents will go, see how you make me feel? Are they even thinking that inside?
Yeah, it's hard sometimes, but
I know. Oh yeah. We're all monkeys. We're sort of elevating into human status. There's nothing like being alone at home with a child that doesn't bring you back to all these instinctive reactions. If you lose your confidence, that's why I just think it's so good for parents to read parenting books, get different points of view, explore different ideas. So you have a sense of confidence that I know what I'm doing, because parenting pushes you. I mean, who taught you how to parent? I
know. Yeah. We don't take a class in it at school or anything like that, do we? Yeah.
Yeah. And there's so many divergent points of view, which, by the way, I also have a wonderful point of view, which is, I have a book. I don't think it's behind me right now. I should put it up there.
Yeah, I've been looking at some of those titles there.
Yeah, I got all these books. I got 27 books. I can't even find them all. But one's called Children Are From Heaven. And I'll get it up there soon. But it is a wonderful book. And kind of what I do there is integrate. I'm a good integrator, male and female, opposite values coming together in harmony. There's the more traditional value of setting boundaries for your children using punishment. And then the people who realize, well, whipping your kids is not such a great idea, are yelling at them is not such a great idea. So let's not yell at them and let's not punish them. Then you get permissive parenting, and permissive parenting spoils children. So how do you find your balance between being really sort of dysfunctionally cruel to your children, and the other side of it is just satisfying their every wish and whim, which is not good. It's finding a balanced place in between. Otherwise, they are spoiled. And I remember, when I was growing up, I was never punished. My parents did an experiment with me. My other 4 older brothers were punished a lot. I grew up in Houston, Texas. And when the boys didn't agree or the boys didn't do things right, they'd line up and my dad would pull out a whip. He'd say, bend over and pull out his belt and whip them. Wow. Well, when I came along, my mother finally convinced him that it doesn't seem to be working. So they said, let's do an experiment with Johnny and let's not punish him. So I'm the other side of it. But they didn't spoil me. That was the key thing. My parents were very humble and well-to-do, but you would never know it.
Well, this is gentle parenting. This is known as gentle parenting now, isn't it?
I like that. That gentle parenting. We still set boundaries. Timeouts is really good. Another way that indulgent parenting, as opposed to gentle, I like that term, is one of the things I bring to the table is I'm like a master of emotions. I spent my whole life with emotional intelligence. And the key with children is when they're upset, they need a parent who's emotionally intelligent, who can give the words to what they're feelings, and that they'll negative will go to positive if you can identify a negative emotion. That's why I was saying, if you're upset with your partner, upset with your life, write it down. I'm angry because, I'm angry that, I'm angry when, I'm sad, I'm disappointed, I'm hurt because, I'm afraid, I'm scared. And don't just do one emotion, do a whole range of them. That's emotional intelligence, where you have vocabulary. When you can, I feel bad, I feel regret, I feel ashamed. These are emotions that when you can identify them, give them a word that says what I'm feeling, you're just connecting it to the prefrontal cortex. So you're actually consciously evolving the brain by giving words to your emotions. In the same way, for your children could get the benefit of that. If you are emotionally literate, a child will be upset and you say, oh, I understand you're upset. You want that ice cream and I'm not giving it to you. So you don't like that at all, do you? It makes you angry, doesn't it? Yes, I'm angry. Now they have a self-awareness of emotions. Yeah. And what's interesting, if you do that, my kids, they would, they become like, oh, okay, now you understand me. And then they think, because you understand me, you're going to give me ice cream. Because a lot of time when children don't get what they want, they think you just don't understand how important that is to me. Yeah. Because so many other times we'll die for our children. We love them and care for them and so forth. So we think that frustration of not being understood. So the first wave will get a relief. And then I said, but you're still not getting the ice cream. then they go, what? I'm not getting the ice cream. And they cry. Oh my God. It's okay. It's okay. I know you're feeling so disappointed, aren't you? You wanted that ice cream and I'm not giving it to you. Makes you so sad. Yes, I'm so sad. I'm so sad. And then you say, well, you know what? Sometimes we have ice cream, sometimes we don't. We're not going to have it today, but we'll have it sometime at a party, at some special occasion. We'll do that. We just don't do that every day. We're a family. We have rules that we follow. We don't do that every day. And they go, oh, I know you'll never give me ice cream again. Because see, underneath all those turbulent emotions is fear. The fear, I'll never get ice cream. And then you hear it. I know you're afraid it will never happen. You don't want to, everybody else gets it. Why don't you get it? You see these people eating ice cream. Well, you'll get your ice cream, but just not today because we don't do that. Now, what you just did, I know you want it and you're going to get it. Are you sure you're going to get it? Yes, sweetie, you're going to get it. I promise you. You promise when? And then you say, when? Well, I'm not sure exactly, but I promise we'll do that. Yeah. And then they'll feel better and they'll be able to feel, oh, my parents are making a promise to me, and they'll be able to receive it. And they also learn the most important lesson of life. I can't always get my ice cream and I can still be happy. See, most people, if you can't get your ice cream, you're not happy. And either you go into, well, I don't want ice cream at all, or you go into, I'll steal ice cream. I'll do it, whatever. As opposed to, I want ice cream and I can't get it. I can't get it today, but I can get it tomorrow. And that's okay. I'll get it next week. And that's okay. That's called delayed gratification. Yeah. See, I have so many more goals. I've got another 10 books in my head. I don't have to do it today. We live in this whole demanding world where I have to have that to be happy. I have to have that to be happy, or I don't want anything and I'm content. You see, that's the other side of it. That's the depressed person who doesn't want more. I want more, but not in a hurry, not have to have it now in order to be happy. What a great skill. We can give that to our children.
Well, also you're hearing their emotions, and rather than saying, hey, you'll be fine, don't worry about it, you'll be fine, you're not just kind of dismissing it, because that's the opposite of actually connecting with emotions and then getting rid of them.
Yeah, that's what we're learning. I was just
watching, do that with adults as well.
We always say don't cry. I was watching the one of those singing contests the other night, and they said, you're nervous, aren't you? And the child said, yeah, I'm nervous. And they said, don't be nervous. Instead of, I understand it can be scary standing in front of an audience. Boom. That's how you do. You just don't say don't. Like I just said, don't. It's such a habit to just don't be upset. Don't be angry. Don't be sad. Don't be afraid. Don't be nervous. Don't be, as opposed to, I understand why you feel that way, or understand you're nervous. That's okay. I'm here. And this is a scary situation, and I'm here. So you're validating, but you're also creating a context that says, and it doesn't have to be that way. Yeah. So it's very, very subtle distinction here. It takes a more intelligent brain to combine those opposite messages, which is because you are
feeling a lot of NLP in what you were saying there. Actually,
a lot of NLP.
A lot of NLP, and I do think that if you had this as a superpower, it'd be wonderful, really, wouldn't it? But
it's such a great gift to our children, and you can't give it to your children until you give it to yourself. That's why. Yeah. We have to realize everything's always okay. Okay. And you're in danger. Okay. Well, all right. You're still alive. You got your gun. You're going to do it. You're going to, I have these fun debates with other writers and so forth. And one of my favorite writers wrote a book with me over there called The Boy Crisis, what boys are going through today. Oh, huge challenges.
Oh yeah. I might have read that one of yours. Yeah.
It's so fantastic. It's a spectacular book, and it's with Warren Farrell. And I go for walks with Warren, and every week we discuss things, our ideas, whatever. And one of the things he just can't buy, and I don't expect people to believe all my ideas, to go in the direction of them is good enough. But one of them is that if you are centered in your heart and you're confident that you will experience no fear, and that all fear is based upon some part of you believing a lie. Because the truth is, fear is forgetting everything's all right. And then he says things like, well, if you're standing in front of a cliff, certainly you should be afraid. Why? And well, you jump off. I said, no, it won't. Why would I jump off just because I don't have fear? I have wisdom. Wisdom says, don't do that. You can have concern for things, but fear, oh my God.
Yeah.
What a waste of energy. So we have to recognize that we have three brains. Okay. This is the scientists talk about. We have an instinctive brain, which is scared. We have a monkey brain. 98% of our brain is the DNA of monkeys. And that's where you're afraid or you're scared. And then you've got something up here in the prefrontal cortex, which is human DNA. And there you don't have those emotions. You have concern. Okay, well, I'm concerned. Let's make sure we solve this problem, put more energy into preparing for something, whatever. But this whole experience of fear, and I speak from experience, being having taught emotional intelligence for 45 years, that's a long time. It was after about 10 years, I eliminated all fear in my life. I used to be so anxious when I gave my first talk on meditation. I had so much nervousness, my knees shook, and I fainted right in front of the audience. They thought I had died, this young 19-year-old guy. It was very funny.
Do you not get nervous now? I mean, I've seen you speak in front of probably 5,000 people. No?
Yeah, never. I never get nervous at all. It's just, I've handled it.
I do.
You can handle this stuff. And I used to be scared. I used to be afraid. And it's important that, the children know that, like, their father used to be afraid or is scared, whatever. I would put it in the context of when you were a child. Because my kids, when I was growing up, I never thought my father was afraid of anything. And one day he told me, when I was in war, I was scared about this. He was in World War II. I was in England, actually. And actually, I'll tell you a funny story. He was in England, and he said he and his friend, everybody going to the bomb shelters. And he didn't like the bomb shelters. So they would just walk around town like they owned town during all the bombing. Because he had the belief that if it's your time, it's your time. I also have that belief. It helps.
Well, that is because actually, another way of looking at fear is that this is fairly deep, but it all comes down to fear of death, doesn't it? Which is not something we're very good. And perhaps that is why people have had so much fear during the pandemic, because, ultimately, I don't want to go into it too deeply, but if you look at the actual risk level of a healthy 30-year-old, 40-year-old, 70-year-old, you're probably going to be okay. But
of course you're going to be okay. We know what the factors are. The factors are, if you're obese, 80% of the people who have serious complications are obese. So instead of saying, hey, let's all wait for the vaccination, let's all do this. How about a year ago, we went on a big national program to lose weight. Then nobody's going to get sick if we lose weight. And if you're in the old folks' home, let's be more careful with those folks. But it's losing the weight thing. Nobody dies or gets sick if you're healthy. Come on, let's have a health program. Let's be motivated instead of sitting back and waiting for someone to solve the problem for us. It's the same thing in our relationships where we wait for our partners to change. If we can just get over this whole thing, don't make your partner such a big deal. That's the problem. It's like, if you're addicted to drugs, you make them a big deal. People are addicted to the high they get when their partner is in a good mood. And so that's why we have to shift gears and realize it's an addiction where I'm dependent on my partner's happiness for me to feel happy. I'm not dependent on my partner's happiness. I'm dependent on her to be happier. I'm an ecstatic person. And if I'm not in connecting with her, I'll take time to do something that makes me happy and not feel guilty about it. That's what people have to get, and not feel something's wrong with your partner. Because if somebody's punching you, you can't be loving. Another phrase I like is if you have a toothache, when your tooth is in pain, you cannot be nice. It's just like grumpy, because you're in a state of fight or flight. Pain is a hard place to be. And I have tremendous sympathy for couples when one partner is in pain, because you cannot expect more from them at those times. But we have to recognize that when we're all being locked down and we're surrounded by fear and we're watching TV, that our cortisol levels will be elevated. And so you can't expect your partner to be the person you married, but they'll come through it. They'll come through it if you don't push at them. That's the problem, is once one partner is sort of not being the person you fell in love with, then we try to change them. And we change them by complaining. You see, people think, I have the right to complain. Complaining is monkey idea too. Let me give you an example. If you're a monkey and somebody steps on your foot and you don't have language, let's say you don't have communication skills, and complaining, by the way, is second to yelling as the worst communication skill ever. Every complaint is a monkey part of the brain. behind that is the human part, is that complaint is a request. So it's totally different from saying, you never do this, you always do that. How could you do this? I can't believe you did this. And then to be upset about it is now emotionally pounding your partner, to be upset with them and to complain. Oh my gosh, these are the foolish things we do because nobody taught us how to do this. We didn't have role models to guide us in another way. I gave that example. I just saw a guy do it once and I thought, wow, that's possible. I want to be able to do that. It's so significant. It's hard, but what you can do is you can start reading books on relationships with people who are emotionally intelligent. But one of the great things about the Mars-Venus ideas, it even helps you to logically understand the foolishness of most of your upsets. For example, when a guy withdraws, your husband was so romantic the other night and then the next day he's ignoring you. What happened? A woman goes, he doesn't love me? No, he loves you. And now he has to back up and find himself again. Because we come back to this hormonal thing. When men are really loving to their partners and they're close, their female hormones start to increase. Yeah. And he needs to decrease those female hormones to rebuild his testosterone hormones. So he tends to pull away. Because whenever you're detached and independent and on your own, testosterone will go up. And for men, we need 20 to 30 times more than a woman. So she doesn't have a reference point to understand why, after a wonderful time together, a guy's going to ignore her and withdraw from her. But once she understands this idea, that's men in their cave. Another idea in Men Are From Mars is men are like rubber bands. We want to get really close. We want to get in there, right? You just get it, and then we become soft. We're done. Roll over, pull away. This is all about the hormonal reactions that go on when men are intimate with women. We connect. Yeah. And there's research that shows, for example, and this is all based on research that I'm talking about, just nobody makes the conclusions I make. This is all new knowledge. But when a man is single, he'll have higher testosterone levels than married men. And when he's single, his testosterone levels will be higher than a man. As soon as he gets in a committed relationship with a woman, there'll be a drop in his testosterone. And then he gets married, there's another drop in his testosterone. And then he has children, there's another drop. Now, that doesn't mean it has to be that way. This is just massive statistical averages. I'm 70, basically, a few months from 70, and my testosterone is 50% higher than when I was a young man. And it didn't go down. I've got grandchildren. I've got children. I love my wife. I still have great sex. My life is wonderful because I have these good communication skills and some biohacking on good supplements and so forth.
If you want to optimize and biohack and be at your best, it is worth doing some detailed health testing. Just interrupting this podcast for one moment to remind you that today's podcast partners are a company that can help you do all of that at home. And it is a company I've been trying out, InsideTracker, an ultra-personalized performance system that analyzes data from your blood and your DNA and your lifestyle and your fitness tracker to help you optimize your body and reach your health and wellness goals. And I've been doing it. And what about my results? Very interestingly, one of my blood markers came back well outside range. I did the test, InsideTracker sent it through the post, took about 3 minutes to do the blood test and send it back. And now their interactive system online is helping me to make some detailed changes. And that is great. And it's just something that I wouldn't have known about, that marker, unless I'd taken the test. You can even upload your DNA results to the portal too for extra insights. Very, very impressive. And you know that I love tracking on this podcast. I'm a big fan of tracking. So you can visit InsideTracker.com/Zestology for a big discount. InsideTracker.com/Zestology for a big discount, 25% off. When you go there, you'll see a cheesy picture of me as well. And, I think if you want to add years to your life and more life to your years, this is the way to go. You have to know what's going well and what you could optimize. And for me, already, I'm getting these results with InsideTracker that is making quite a difference. And the other thing is, a lot of people say to me, look, I'd love to get tests, but it's too expensive and it's too complicated. And this is not that expensive, and you can do it all at home as well. InsideTracker.com/Zestology for 25% off. Now back to the show. Well, actually, we've not got that long left because obviously it's interesting. We've talked quite a bit about hormones, cortisol, testosterone. We've talked about fear, as well as the benefit to hormonally from living your life in balance. I know that you are keen on a little bit of biohacking as well. What do you take? Do you take any testosterone kind of boosters? And I know there's one supplement that you love, which I wanted to ask you about. I can't remember the name, but what's it called?
Oh, Tonkat Ali. It's 20 years since I took Tonkat Ali.
Oh, okay. Okay.
but no, I love it.
Yeah.
For men, I have an erection every day, and I'd be having an erection all day if I took Tonkat Ali. See,
I think I might have taken Tonkat Ali before. I think I did.
If you didn't get a result from Tonkat Ali, you need to just take more. It's one of these herbs. It's so powerful.
What's this serapeptase all about? Is that? I mean, I know that's not to testosterone, but what's that all about?
Serapeptase is about taking pain out of your body. One of the biggest decreasers of testosterone in men and estrogen in women is pain. Pain is a certain level of cortisol. All right. So if you're in pain, your body's always going to be hormonally out of balance. It's tough. And so you got pain suppressors, which are the worst things to do. You've got, of course, the drugs are really bad, but the most common one, which I'd say is the worst drug on the planet because it's so widely used, is Tylenol. You have a different word for it.
Calpol? No. Is that? It's like paracetamol, or?
Yeah, paracetamol.
Yeah.
Paracetamol is the second biggest selling drug in the world.
Okay.
And it inhibits your antioxidant production in your body. There's a hormone called glutathione, enzyme called glutathione. Well, glutathione, not sure what you call it, but
we call it glutathione. Yeah.
So it's a molecule. It's your body's super antioxidant. Do you take MSM?
No,
you know what it is?
No.
Oh, sulfur.
I have heard of it, but tell me.
Oh, sulfur is, if I was to take one supplement, you should see my house. I mean, because I sell supplements as well. I got a health food store. Online at marsvenus.com, which is good for people to know, is to get, if you want educated advice on any supplement, go to my website. You can't buy from my website in England, but you can know what's good for you to get. But MSM, if I couldn't do anything, I would take MSM. MSM is sulfur. It's the building block of the body. And the other super supplement we're just touching on was serapeptase. And a lot of people don't know about serapeptase, but you can get it. It's been around for the last decade. It's a massive discovery. You know how you can take enzymes to improve your digestion. Well, serapeptase is an enzyme that doesn't digest your food. It digests fibrin. And whenever you have chronic pain, you have what's chronic inflammation. The reason it stays in your body is fibrin develops around it. It's every time you have pain in your body, there's an infection and there's inflammation, and the body hasn't figured out how to end the infection. So the body becomes inflamed, and then fibrin builds up around it to keep that infection from spreading in your body, even after the infection's finished. So that's why you get chronic pain. Pain is normal and natural. You should feel pain if some injury happens. Pain connects the brain to it, and then it should go away very quickly. When it doesn't, when you have chronic pain, arthritic pain, chronic pain anywhere in your body, even these calcium deposits that start in the body, all of these stuck areas in your body have fibrin, and serapeptase will melt fibrin. Literally, it melts it away, just like it melts your meat down. You need enzymes to melt it all down.
Look into it.
Well, serapeptase is made. They found it from silkworms.
I saw that on your site. Yeah, that's amazing.
It melts the cocoon. It gets released and melts the cocoon. So they take some of that, then they mass produce it in these factories. So serapeptase, an amazing enzyme, never a side effect. The only side effect, I've been promoting it for 10 years, something like that. And the only side effect I heard was a guy who had chronic inflammation, arthritic pain all the time. And he was taking all these painkillers for it. And I'm really against painkillers if you can find another way, because anytime you're taking a painkiller, you're suppressing glutathione. Yeah. If you suppress glutathione, you don't have antioxidants in your body. Your brain degenerates. You get old. You get sick. All that crazy stuff. So you don't want to live in pain, because if you're living in pain, you're constantly producing cortisol. And for men, that's lowering your testosterone. And for women, that's lowering your estrogen. That's what pain does. You want to get out of pain. Pleasure is the place to be. So serapeptase, well, the only side effect of serapeptase was one guy, he started taking it with my advice, and All his pain went away in a couple of weeks. Okay. Terrible pain, was taking all these drug pains. And then he started getting diarrhea. So he goes to his doctor who doesn't know anything about supplements and says, well, all my pain is gone, but now I get diarrhea taking this substance. And the doctor says, well, you shouldn't take that substance. You should take your pain pills. And so the guy calls me up. I said, forget it. Just cut your dose. If you have too much of anything, too much magnesium, you'll have diarrhea. That's how you can know too much magnesium. And we talked about the importance of sleep. And, there's wonderful magnesium products that will help you to sleep better. Yeah. Magnesium's very relaxing because when you're stressed during the day, you're using up your magnesium. Magnesium helps you relax. Calcium helps you tighten. Okay, so one is the tightening is calcium, and that's dopamine. And then there's the relaxation is the magnesium.
Oh, we love the magnesium here. That's for certain. I've got a feeling my house is a bit like yours. There's a lot of supplements knocking around here as well, but I don't have a supplement shop like you. John,
but I don't take that many supplements. People should know that. I just study them, and when I need something, then I'll take it. But MSM, I if ever I start to see a wrinkle on my face, I will go take MSM for a few weeks. It will take it away. Oh, it's pure. It's rebuilding your body. It rebuilds everything.
Now I'm making a note of it.
MSM. But I brought it up because you said you detox. Yeah. MSM, the first thing it will do is cause massive detox. It cleans your body and then it rebuilds your body. Yeah. And it's the cheapest supplement you can buy. It's sulfur. It's why you go to those sulfur springs and feel so good afterwards. It's sulfur. Yeah. It's a form that your body can utilize and heal itself from pain and also rebuild the skin and the muscles and whatever. But you only start with like a quarter of a teaspoon. It's a powder you put in warm water. It will dissolve. A quarter of a teaspoon for a while. And if you were to do a teaspoon, I do 2 teaspoons a day, you detox too fast. It will, unless you're if you have toxins in your body, then you'll feel like a flu-like symptom if you were to do as much as I take.
Well, that's certainly what happened with glutathione with me. I started with like a drop liposomal glutathione, and now I can, take the full dose. But yeah, that sounds like that sounds excellent with the MSM. John, we have reached the end of our recording. I always love talking to you so much, and it's nice to sort of talk specifically about what people have gone through over the last year.
Oh, thanks. Well, I've got I do live YouTube and live Facebook on Thursdays, Pacific time, for a few hours on Thursdays at 10 o'clock. But it's always on there. You can always go and see my talks. Sometimes I talk 4 hours.
4 hours of John Gray.
You can hear me in the background going on and on and on. How do I come up with all this information? I don't know. I actually, on Thursdays, I only do this 4-hour thing, 3 to 4 hours on Facebook. And I leave the afternoon open to hear what I said. I just get into a flow.
Great. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, well, I will. Oh, that's my Thursday sorted then. John, really good to talk to you as always. Thanks so much. I really hope we can see you in person at some point.
I look forward to it. Yeah.
Take care. That's it for this week's podcast. Thank you for listening. Have a really good week. Next week, I'm so excited because I have a minimalist expert called Shira Gill on. And I got to know Shira through Instagram. She's got a lot of followers on Instagram and she's now got a book out as well. And I made contact and I just said, look, I know you've got something to promote. Do you want to come on Zestology? And we had like a brilliant interview, a brilliant chat. And when the moment I finished the interview, I went straight downstairs from my little cubby hole in the spare room here at home where I recorded this podcast and started tidying stuff and making changes around the house. Very inspiring. Lovely to talk to her. Shira Gill coming next week. And I genuinely think it'll declutter your house, but declutter your headspace as well. A quick reminder that this podcast is brought to you by my new podcast partners, InsideTracker.com. I do find testing and apps, it just does my head in when I get blood tests or poo tests or wee tests. I mean, don't want to go into too many details, but they come through the post and you just look at them and it's just so confusing. And that is not the case with InsideTracker. It is the most simple at-home testing kit that you will ever have. And it's not just at-home testing. They do some testing, but you can upload all your own stats, all your own data. You can sync up your fitness tracker. They look at all different areas, aging, genetics, biometrics, and then they've got a patented algorithm that helps you to create an ultra-personalized nutrition platform, a science-backed action plan, optimize performance, and feeling good. So if you're a truth seeker or a change maker or a goal getter, then you might well be interested in InsideTracker. And if you go to InsideTracker.com/Zestology, you get a big chunk of change off, 25% off. So I really hope that this works for you. I think in a lot of areas, it is important to get testing done and to get the correct analysis of those tests. And it's very hard to know where to recommend people to go. And now I have a place to recommend people. And it might be that it doesn't replace your practitioner. This works alongside it because it's quite a lot cheaper than working with a practitioner, that's for certain. But go to InsideTracker.com/Zestology, sign up, and please do let me know how you get on as well, because I'd be fascinated to know. Well, that is it for this week's podcast. As always, thank you to John. Thank you for listening. See you next week for Shearer Gill. And in the meantime, if you want to sign up to TonyWrighton.com, there's sort of weekly newsletters and 3 Zesty Things newsletters with some energizers throughout the week as well. Have a good one, and I'll speak to you next week.